one of my favorite TV shows is now over. The other two, which ended up on HBO Max, Max. It originally started on Comedy Central, and it was so good. The way I love this show, and I think everyone who loved it, it was a bunch of people, millions, who loved this show, but it wasn't like the biggest show on the planet, you know what I mean? You did hear a lot about it on Twitter. The other two, let's talk about what makes it special and why even at the end of it, I don't know if it was by way of the Instagram, with some of the cast members talking about the emotional experience throughout the 3 seasons, or just watching the storyline and feeling really connected to it. So if you haven't watched it, which by the way, it's so good. I love shows that have that vibe. Like you always hear me talking about how I loved Hulu's Difficult People with Julie Klausner and Billy Eichner. That only had 3 seasons, lots of sarcasm, lots of chase your dreams. Obviously there's chase dreams in the other two. But I like those shows with sarcasm, piss and vinegar. I'm just like, when's it gonna ever happen for me? I can relate. Anyway, so that's where I originally began to really like the show. So the show is created by some of the writers from SNL. So there's already kind of like a good strong support when the show started. It started on Comedy Central. And I don't know personally how it is in terms of getting a show to go from one network to the next. And then it was during COVID, which is such a time that potentially, a show could maybe have a challenge with that. And then also the kid that played Chase, which was the little brother, and I'll talk about the storyline, how it was set up in a second. He was a lot younger when the show started, and then to carry that over, with the pandemic or whatever, was probably very challenging. So to see it all is really, really cool. So, I mean, you don't need to know the premise because you could go to IMDb to check it out. But it's basically, you've got this young kid, Chase Dreams, who accidentally, like they always do, virally becomes a household name, and then, all this adulation, all this money, et cetera, et cetera. The mother is played by Molly Shannon, who does not love Molly Shannon. She's so great, right? And she's good in this. Like, she's good, but she's good in everything she does. Let me count the ways I love Molly Shannon. Anyway, she plays the mother. They're out of Ohio. It's wonderful. And I don't even know why I'm going too detailed, because anyone who is watching or supporting even this commentary, it's like, you already know the show. But for those that don't, I will say this. I will say that that's the basic thing. And where the cringe that we all feel is when we see, the way things have changed so much. Used to be you would go get your education, you would hone your craft, you would become a thing so you could get that big break. But now with social media, you now know that doesn't exist. Where that is comparative for me is I worked in radio for 100 years. Yes, I'm 115. Thank you. No, I worked in radio for 100 years, and all of those, blood, sweat, and tears of driving to these small markets, doing radio shows overnight, don't matter, because now somebody just goes click, and then they accidentally stumble during their episode, and then it's like funny. The comedy in it, it's funny, and then they become like a superstar or whatever, and then they're able to leverage that with monetization, brand deals, and network deals and stuff. So the youngest brother, who didn't never care about any of this stuff, becomes a success. So the show, being called The Other Two, is what Carrie Dubeck and Brooke Dubeck, what do they do with that? What do you do with that when your punk-ass brother, who you love, accidentally becomes something? What do you do with that? So that's the whole premise. And again, as I compared it, not that anything is similar, because I just love Difficult People so much on Hulu. I actually did a podcast called Difficult Podcasters. Go to difficultpodcasters.com if you want to see that. But nonetheless, I love these shows. As I said, I love these shows with like, let's go, I got to work my crappy survival job, but I'm still chasing the dream. Chase dreams. I'm still chasing the dream. And like, when's it ever going to happen? And then, you add that beautiful New York City energy to it. It's going to be even better. You know what I mean? I grew up in Southern California, spent, in total about 7 years in New York, where I'm at now currently. And it makes sense. And I always wonder, like, did I love Difficult People on Hulu and the other two on Comedy Central and then Max as much if I didn't live in New York. But I think the story is still relatable because anything that you want to do, you're always being knocked down sometimes by, favoritism, like in your own job, favoritism, nepotism, bullshit. There's always something. And so to see Carrie Dubek and Brooke Dubek really shine, and their way of shining is just continuing to try. And fail again, and try and fail again. Because in this life, unfortunately, maybe fortunately, we're not really given a lot of time to really go through and speak to the things that are sort of pissing us off. It's very much like, shut up and just keep going. And so that's what kind of makes it funny, I guess. Sometimes I feel like, a therapist would be helpful to kind of go through the emotions, but that's what makes the show so good. Anyways, back to the show. I mean, for me, I just think Carrie Dubek's character is so wonderful. As a gay man, you get to see all of the stuff on the show, and that feels really good and connected. I definitely love that. But as the show went on, and I was just talking to a friend about this, it's not saying anyone's better than the other, but the way Brooke Dubek made that show, and then the actress, she, like I said, she took to Instagram, and she was talking about, like, even on the the beginning, the pilot, where she's starting out, and you think she's in this wonderful luxury apartment, and it turns out she was just a real estate agent sleeping on an air mattress, and she took a couple photos from that. She posted it, the actress who plays Brooke Dubek. And she was talking about how she didn't actually necessarily feel secure when the show started. Did they choose the wrong person even? And I just thought that was so incredibly, I guess vulnerable is maybe the best word to use, but so incredibly vulnerable, because we all go through that. It's like I've been kind of going through this thing in my head lately where I'm like, on one hand, when you come into a room based on what it is that you're trying to do, in this case, become an actress, or the Brooke Dubek character actually went more into management. But the whole point is you come into a room and you come into it confident. People sometimes, they want to turn you down. And for what? And sometimes you then listen to that. You hear the little lies that start to, accumulate in your mind. And then you do start to feel a little bit quieter or lesser than, and it's not good. So I always say that anytime that I get to a space of confidence, which I've had quite a bit, because you can't really look at it today and say, oh, you're really confident, or Lord forbid, arrogant, and it's like, you don't know where the F I've been. And I thought that was necessarily not what the actress was trying to explain, but that's how I felt it. I felt that, like, somebody so freaking amazing as she is, she managed to tell the world through Instagram that, like, I didn't even think I fit here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're the best. You're so good. You should get all the money that Kaylee Cuoco makes. Like, let's switch the paychecks. I want you to have a career that Kaylee Cuoco has. If I could wave a magic wand. Then again, if I could wave a magic wand, I would have a chin implant, liposuction, and that's about all, because I'm so very good looking already. Anyway, the other two, tell me what you thought of it. To me, it just was really a wonderful show. I almost didn't think to do an episode as commentating about it, because I was like, oh, it's just so great. There's like nothing is to be added to it. But then I also thought, I said, for the people that didn't get into this huge, like almost like a cult following of loving this show, maybe doing an episode on my channel would be valuable. So somebody wants to, on a rainy day, flip on a show, go watch the other two. And again, I always say, like, I think, yes, it could be great if you are in the business, in show business, in a big city, great. But I think it's relatable on all levels. I think the writers really did a wonderful job at that. So I would like to personally see the success of all of these cast members do really, really well, because all of them had 3 wonderful seasons, and it did become, in my opinion, it became appointment television. Like, I could not wait for it to air every week. Like, I enjoyed talking about it. If there was a friend or an acquaintance or a colleague who also watched it, I was like, did you see that episode? What? He was talking about his hole. Like, it's just, all of it was so good. And Brooke, she went to all of these places. And then you had Brooke Dubek's boyfriend in the show. I actually seen him, the actor. He was on the, he's done a ton of things. He's so talented and good looking. I saw him when I went to go see Gloria Estefan had a show called Get on Your Feet, and he played Emilio Estefan. So he's such a talent on so many levels. And what was great about his character and how it married to Brooke is, especially at the last season, Brooke just being like, I can't be with this guy who, when she originally met him, he was just working at the Foot Locker. But as the time had went on, she became sort of bothered that he was such a do-gooder, and she was like, what do I do? Like, I'm not doing anything in the world. And I think that was actually kind of funny because it made for a funny storyline for sure. And it also was very funny because you had it just was funny. It just was funny. No, it was for a funny storyline because you had her trying all these different ways on how she was going to showcase to the world that I'm not in this, silly show business. I'm here for a reason. So let the jokes and the silly events ensue, and it was so wonderful in that way. I'm trying to think about some of the other things that really make it great, but the jokes were so funny. The actress Wanda Sykes was, of course, in it, and I mean, she couldn't have been more perfect also. To think 3 seasons, that's a really great run. It really, really is. But now I'm like, oh man, like a show that felt so, I don't want to say relatable because I'm not living as similar to them at all. I'm not, I don't act, but I do work in radio and podcasting and all these things, and you know what that journey looks like. One of the latest radio stations that I was involved in, 94.7, it's like what it is to like wake up early and put in tons of effort, and then you're trying to calculate what's the smartest move and how you could be an asset and how it could all work together. And I just feel like so many humorous things can happen when you are trying those things, and when your schedules get crazy, and then you go from this job to that job to this job to that job to this job and that job, and then how you still need to show up and show up happy and be on your feet. And sometimes these characters were great because sometimes they were just like, I don't fucking know. And so to me, that was very relatable. Anyways, the other two, I cannot wait to see what the creative force is. I think Chris is one of the writers, co-creators. I can't wait to see what they do. The backing of Lorne Michaels is huge. It just was such a perfect show. It was a perfect show. What happens when your punk ass teenage brother becomes a viral sensation and gets all the money that you've been working hard for and you've been studying the craft of acting? And what do you do? What do the other two do? And that was Brooke and Carrie Dubeck. Such a fantastic idea. I'm just so excited to see what's next for each and every person who worked on that production, worked behind, the scenes, to make that magic. I'm so interested to see what the writers do next, what they co-create next, what Lorne Michaels wants to be a part of in terms of, these really great stories, and what these actors do with that. I really loved the way it ended. I love the way Brooke felt and learned a couple things. Carrie Dubeck's character, I loved the way he had to assess a couple things at the end and make new, sort of like a new path. As me being 42 years old, I feel like I'm very much sometimes saying, is this even, what's going on? And that's why I do my channel, and that's why everyone loves it, because we get to connect on this level. Anyway, do your due diligence, right? What is it called? Like, comment, and subscribe, because I'm more of a radio guy, so doing it like this is different to me. Oh, actually, I don't have to say anything. I have a word.
Well, hello there. Thank you for watching and supporting the show with my good friend, RandomlyRJ Jr. Who the hell am I? Great question. My name is Mark Rodriguez with Mastermind Media, and I wanted to take just a moment of your time to let you know about all the other incredible things this guy, RandomlyRJ Jr. has going on. But first, before we get into that, please comment, like, and subscribe. That is how he grows here on these channels. But one channel you probably don't know about is patreon.com/RandomlyRJ Jr., where he's got a bunch more exclusive content. So please check that out. But speaking of YouTube, let's go back to YouTube for a second. He's got this hashtag randomly with Ronnie Jr. and it shows all of his stuff in his days in radio from back in the day, all the way up to present day, and his new interviews, podcasts, just videos across the board. So please check that out, because when you think about content creators, there's millions of content creators, but there's only one, Randomly Ronnie Jr. Let's get back into the show.
All right, thank you, Mark, for those kind words. Yes, yes, yes. Do all of what he said. And check out that show, the other two, and tell me, what are your favorite moments from the show? Does the show, is it done? Should it get a spinoff? Weigh in, and we will talk from there. Well, I probably won't comment back because I already did the show and I got to do another one. But I would love to hear what you think. So do that, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. The other two, great freaking comedy. I'm into it, but I got to go. All right, we'll talk on the next one.
Hey, Ronnie Jr.